Great. Great. All right. Today we have Mafe here, who's joining us to share a little bit about her career change. Mafe, why don't you introduce yourself and take us back? Give us, when you decided that maybe the current job you were at wasn't for you, and what that job was.
Yes, of course. So hi, Maka. Thank you for having me today. It's really great to see you always. Where I started. So before going through the Avocademy process, I was I would say web design freelancer. So I have been doing that for many years now. And the thing is that I was basically working in different projects, and they were very, very interesting. And each one of them offers something really cool, but for some reason, and this is where I believe, like, your life is 50% yourself, 50% what life presents to you. So all of the sudden, like, the projects that I was doing were finalizing, and I started to feel like I wanted a career change, and everything happened like simultaneously. Like, I had maybe 5 clients at the time, and all those projects like suddenly came to an end, and I was like, okay, so what do I want to do now, right? So initially I started searching for other web design positions, or even web admin positions, because I was also a web admin. But when I started, like, in maybe LinkedIn searching for, like, the search results were a lot about UX designer, and the ones for web admin or web designers involved coding. I am a designer, I don't code. So those jobs were not for me. And I was like, okay, so what is this about UX design? And I started doing a little bit research, and it was a little bit funny to me, because then I started realizing that I had been doing a lot of the things, like, for example, the job requirements, but it was not quite what I was doing. So there was like a gap. So internet being internet, doing its thing, I was one day browsing through Instagram, and I saw an ad about, like, it was something like transition to tech industry without breaking the bank, or something like that. So that caught my eye, and I started researching Avocademy, and like, oh, okay, so I can learn this. And I started researching other boot camps. I am a Virgo, so I need to compare everything. I need to make every decision really informed.
Yeah.
So I went through many boot camps and even universities. I am in Southern California, so there are like 2 or 3 universities nearby that offer programs. So I started waging like all these options. And I am an immigrant. I come from Colombia, South America. And when I first tried to get this job in the web design, it was a nightmare. I felt like I didn't understand the market. I didn't understand the dynamics here. And I had no one to ask, like, hey, how do you search for jobs here? And people would say, well, go to LinkedIn. But it was like, yeah, but something was missing. So for me, that was it. Like, this is the support I need to make a transition from what I'm doing to UX.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. So just backing up a little bit, you say you were doing web design, freelance web design, right? Is that correct? Like, you had a couple of clients. What type of work were you doing for them? Were you like building sites on like Weebly and Wix and Squarespace? Were you like what defined what you were doing before, just so that when we talk about what you're doing now, we can look at the differences?
Yeah, that is a great question. So actually, after I went through the programs with Avocademy, I started realizing that I was doing a little bit, well, many things of UX before, but I didn't know. So for example, what I would do is I would redesign completely web pages. And the longer projects were the ones that were actually my favorites, projects that lasted 3 years or 2 years, where I had continuity. I was able to, okay, so we redesigned the page. So what now? So, okay, let's see how it's doing. So I started like the first analytics was like, okay, how much traffic we're bringing to the website. But then I started to see other things like, okay, how much time people spend on average on a page, and asking myself why, and how can we improve this? How can we reduce the bounce rate? So I started proposing improvements in the design, improvements in the experience, in the content, in the SEO, to help people come to our website and stay in our website and complete. I worked a lot with e-commerces, so complete the purchase funnel.
Checkout process, yeah.
Exactly. So that was a place where I spent a lot of time in the checkout process, in the purchase funnel, because it has a huge drop. Like it is like 5% people who complete it. So, okay, so how can we do micro conversions in each step of the process to help people go a little bit further and a little bit further? Where are people coming from? What is the different like people that visit us? So, okay, so we have some people that are, I don't know, maybe they already know what they want to do. Maybe we have some people who are like starting research. So I started to understand that there were like different phases of the user, if you will. And then I started to ask questions: who is the person who's coming to us? How can we speak more directly? Let's create a language that connects better with them. So later I understood that I was doing user persona.
You're doing UX, yeah. you're, and I think that's really, it is the case for a lot of folks that are doing graphic, like, they're a graphic designer, but they're designing websites with like their graphic design title. You realize that a lot of the questions you ask yourself for your design process, like to do the work you need to do, ends up being UX UI design. You just didn't have the vocabulary to call it like what they call it in the UX UI design field, right? So I'm sure as you start foundations, you're like, oh, like I know this, or I know 80% of this, and I just didn't know it was called this, right? Like, did you have a lot of those moments where you were like, oh yeah, I've been doing that, I just didn't call it this, or like that type of?
All the time, because other things that I do for this project was user testing. So we would record the screens, and with these recordings, we would see how users were interacting with the pages, and we were doing also A/B testing to see like which designs were working better.
Yeah.
And later I realized I was doing user testing. For me, I was just, I'm just watching people do stuff.
Yeah.
So when I went through foundations, all the time I was like, oh, but I am familiar with this. Oh, interviews. Well, not exactly the way we do them in foundations, but definitely like one of the teams that I love to pair with, like, I love to make teams is with customer support, because they have direct access to clients. So we would develop surveys to see how things are doing. And sometimes we would include like a UX or like a page experience. So there I was doing like primary research. Did I know it was primary research? I was like, no, let's ask the customer some questions. So it was fun. It was fun then to put like the proper label to everything later.
Nice. Cool. So you start foundations, right? You said that you needed something that kind of gave you the structure, right? Like you weren't super sure how to find a job. You liked the job guarantee that we have in place. So you start foundations. Around what time did you start? Like what month, what year are we looking at?
It's gonna be 1 year. I think it was May last year, May something last year.
So May 2022. You start foundations. Okay, cool. Yeah. So how long did it take you to finish, right? We have some people that finish in like 4 weeks. Somehow we have people that take, 8, 16, couple months. At that time, like how long did it take you to kind of go through the program?
Yeah, so one thing that was particular to me is that I was working while I was doing the foundations course. So I had to juggle both things at the same time.
Of course, yeah.
So I started in May, but I finished in, I think, middle August. So it was May, June, July, like 3 months.
Okay, perfect. So you finished in 3 months. You said August, right? May, June, July, August. And then did you start Career Jumpstart right away? Or did you take a break? how'd you feel when you finished? You know, I know the course is like, it's not super easy, right? Like it takes some work to put in to get to that portfolio. How did you feel? Did you feel accomplished, or like, wow, I can't believe I just just did that when you
Yeah,
finished the foundations program?
yeah, absolutely. So for me, it was such a joy because it was more challenging than I expected. I love foundations as well because it helped me realize how much I love this. Like I loved being a graphic designer. And actually it's funny because I am not I didn't go to graphic school or design school. I went to the communication school and I learned advertising and video production,
Good.
which is very so for me, foundations was discovering that I was doing a lot of UX before that I didn't know I was doing it. And but it was falling in love with this process. And it's a little bit different. Even though I was doing a little bit of UX before, it was a little bit different because now it had more structure and it was like, yeah, I don't know, it started making a lot of sense to me. So I would work from 7 a.m. till 5 p.m. And then I would start immediately. I know, then I would go to the gym to like not go crazy. And then I would start foundations from 6 till 9. It was a very, very long day,
It's
but I
very, yeah,
knew
yeah,
I knew I was in the right track because I was looking forward to 5 o'clock every day.
yeah.
It was like, oh, I want to get this done so I can go and do foundations. I am so excited about UX. So it was hard. It was harder than I thought it was. But when I finished, it was super amazing. While I was doing two big projects earlier, I was working with a lot of people. I was working with developers. I was working with content creators, with other design. So it was so fun to be part of a team. As a freelancer, the job can be a little bit lonely. So I had this situation that I was like losing clients, doing something that I knew now that it's not what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be dedicated to UX. So as soon as I finished, I was like, now I know I think it's Vanessa, I don't remember her name. I was bothering her like I want to be in CJ now, and she was like, you need to make a test. And then no, now she was like, we need 2 weeks, you need to, and I was like, oh my god. But fortunately the process was quite quick and I was in CJ by next week when I finished foundation.
Nice. So you joined. I love that you had that like light bulb moment, you know, of like, I really love this. I want to do this. And that's really the entire purpose of foundations, is to make sure that you like love this, right? Because what comes next is not super easy. And I know we're about to talk about it, but the job search of like a full-time UX UI design role is not easy. Like it takes a lot of work and repetition and kind of that roller coaster of emotions. But tell us about CJ. You start CJ almost right away. How many projects did you do? Did you not like collaborating with other designers, right? The structure that we have, right, is like anywhere from 3 to 6 designers in Career Jumpstart. And then we pair you up with a design mentor, which is typically a senior designer. And then you have your PMs in your project. So the PM, the senior designer, are part of like Moment Studio. And then we have the client, right, for each project. So with that context, for everyone that's listening, how did you, how was your experience working with different teams? We know sometimes it's like things explode and everyone like, you know, it's kind of like high school, right? When you're doing group
Yeah.
projects. So how was your experience working, working with other team members and kind of like running into client projects?
So for me, the thing is that throughout like the process, so I told you like I was working two projects that I work with a lot of people. I absolutely loved it. Then those projects finished and I was then a lonely freelancer again. I realized I definitely was craving teamwork. So there's
Right.
like I feel like two stages in life. Sometimes you have a lot of teamwork and then you want to be alone for a while. I was in the other part of the cycle. I was very alone for many years. I wanted a team. So when I started CJ and had a huge team, I felt so, so happy. Like for me, it was like unicorns and ponies running in the hills. It is not the case for many people, but and I think that because I had this energy and I was like so excited, I landed two amazing teams. So I did two projects. and I landed two amazing teams. The thing is that for me, it was kind of weird at the beginning. The first team, we are like 5 designers, and then you have a team lead and a PM. Because I've been doing freelancing for a long time, and because life has been like this for me, I always ended up being a team leader, always. Like for the last 10 years, I always ended up somehow being in a leadership position. This was the first time in 10 years that I wasn't a team lead.
Was that hard for you?
Great. It was a little bit hard because I was like, I want to give this person, I want to be like the +1. So I want to be the best like wing person +1 that they can have. And I want to listen to their ideas and follow through. So I had to really, instead of acting and doing things the way I would do normally, I had to stop and like receive first and then do, and make sure that I was not very opinionated and being like, no, let's do this other. No, I really had to slow down and first like, let's do what this person wants us to do. But there was a lot of space for me to jump in and add many things. I was the person in the team with the most UI experience. So naturally, like I created a leadership position inside the team, and the team was looking for me and at me for UI. So I ended up creating all the like design system and all like the style guide and the pattern libraries and the components, because it comes naturally to me and I have the experience. So that happened. And in the other project, I was the team lead. So that was fun. And I love both projects a lot. Of course, sometimes you have to like navigate through different time zones and people having to do a lot of things. So that, I think that's like the hard component. And of course, there are people with different levels of experience. So navigating that is also interesting. And it's like understanding how can you be a good teammate and help the other, not do the work for them, but inspire and guide them to do what we're supposed to do. So for example, when I was a leader in CJ, one teammate was not aware of components and she did all her screens with no components. So when we started adjusting the components, the changes were not reflecting on her screen. So I was like, what's going on here? So I had to sit down with her and explain to her components and how it's important and things like that. So, but anyway, I enjoyed the ride tremendously.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm very much like you, that as much as I don't want to be in a leadership role, I always end up like, all right, we're going, even in like, if, family trips, I'm like planning where we're going, or like with friends, I'm like, all right, now we're doing this, like not even in a work setting. So I totally understand what you mean by like in that first project, you weren't the lead, but you ended up being sort of the lead anyway, from that like innate ability to be like, all right, we're doing this. So that's awesome. You finished 2 projects. So now you have like 3 Avocademy projects, right? You have the one from foundations, it's like fake. And then you have the 2 real client projects. What industries were the client projects in? Do you remember?
I remember something that I loved about CJ, that they ask you, like, where do you want to work? And I know, like, for sure, I love the wellness and health industry. Like, that's my jam. That's what I want to do. And I told them, and so the projects I worked were in those, like,
amazing,
in that frame.
Cool. That's awesome. So you finished, you fixed up your resume, you're ready to start applying for jobs. Tell us a little bit about that. How long did it take you to find the job? What job was it? To kind of take us through the rest of the story.
So I think something that was very beneficial for me is that I do have many years of experience as a UX designer, even if I didn't had like a tag, you didn't know it, but yeah. So something I loved about CJ is that I was able to sit with a mentor and say, hey, I did this, I did that based on foundations. I know this is UX. I don't know how to articulate this or that, because in foundations, you go through the happy like route of a product. But in real life, you do it's not a circle. It's not like you do research in one point, then you do ideation, then you do
Yeah.
design, but then again research, but let's do testing. So it is not linear, and I couldn't understand that immediately. So the mentor helped me bring my other experience and incorporate it into my portfolio. So instead
Nice.
of having 3 projects, I had 5 projects. So that already gave me, I think, an advantage.
Yeah.
So I was working really hard, really intensely to get this portfolio done. And then the second I posted online and I changed my LinkedIn to open to work, I was reached out by a recruiter. And this was actually my then job. So it was like very like easy,
You
if you
didn't
will.
apply to any jobs, right?
No, I did apply
Yeah.
to 100
Okay.
jobs because
Okay.
obviously, well, you get this first screener interview with the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
recruiter, then you have a bunch of other interviews, and then a month elapsed. And in that month, you have the big question, are they going to extend an offer? So you
Yeah.
don't know until the offer is in your email, right?
Yeah.
So until that, you have to keep searching and searching. And I applied over 100 jobs, and I did like over 12 interviews or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was lucky that the first option that appeared to me was the one that I ended up getting hired. But I still had to do a lot of work of, if I mean, you wake up and you're like, what if they don't offer me anything? So you keep, and I was in 2 really good processes, just that one like beat the other in terms of salary, and they extended an offer quickly, but I was doing very well in 2 processes. So yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So you get this offer for a very, very, very high salary. You don't have to share if you don't feel comfortable, but I remember seeing that number.
Yeah.
Tell us like how you feel, how long are you at the job, kind of if you feel comfortable sharing kind of the rest of the story to where you're at now.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, it was like, I am a person who also believes like, okay, if you have enough clarity of what you want, that will happen. Like the key in life, like if there was like, if I am dying and someone told me what is the key in life, I would tell, know what you want and go for it. So I knew exactly what I wanted, and I knew that I wanted this job, and everything happened, and I had the team I wanted. I like, my team was so amazing. I had a manager, and we are still friends. Like, we're in touch, and teammates, like, and I was working with like 7 developers, and we had such a beautiful thing going on. It was amazing. The salary was great. Obviously, I had always like this imposter syndrome, like, oh God, so like this is like my first formal UX job. I know that I do have a ton of experience, and I have experience in other skills like dealing with stakeholders and
Yeah.
like having developers saying no and the stakeholders saying yes, and how to manage it. So I do have all those skills because I've been doing that since, well, I don't know,
Yeah.
2016 or something. But the UX title, I didn't have that until really recently. So I was like all the time, like, they're gonna find out and it's gonna be terrible and they're paying me all this
You
money.
had
And I
so
was,
much experience too. Like it's so interesting when I have these conversations and you're telling me you have like 10 years of experience almost, right? In doing this. And we just spent the last 15 minutes talking about how you already knew this, you just needed to know the words, and then you still felt this way, right? And it's, to me, it's such a like interesting psychological thing that we like tell ourselves like, I'm a fraud, like I don't know what I'm doing. And it happens to everyone. It happens to someone like you with 10 years of experience, and then it happens to someone that like just transitioned careers. And I still haven't figured out how to like not make it happen. But I love that you're sharing this, because it's just, everyone's like, I don't have enough experience, but then I meet people like you who had the experience and you still feel that way too. So just, anyways, continue. Sorry for interrupting
no,
there. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, I think part of my work as well was like doing internal work, like, hey, no, you know it, you've got it. And it was amazing. And I got great feedback from everyone around me, from my manager and my teammates, and everyone had great things to say about me. And one Monday, I remember this, I woke up and I had this huge presentation because I had been working in how the design team was going to work. So in the design team workflow, we're going to present it to the rest of the organization so everyone would know how to interact with us. We had this presentation and it was amazing. Like I was working with another UX designer and we knocked it out of the park. So after this meeting, I had another meeting with HR and I thought it was a routine meeting. And then it turns out that they had a massive layoff. Like the company back then had like 100 employees and they let go of 10. So the 10% of the company had to be let go because of the circumstances of the technical industry and so on. So that was really sad. Obviously, I was in a moment like I was like, oh wait, I think I did, like, the thing is that I thought I did every single step right, and I was like, what did I do wrong? Great thing for me and for this imposter syndrome is that afterwards everyone reached out to me and they were like, you were doing such an amazing job. This is so stupid. We don't understand how this could have happened, especially to you. We were so excited to work with you. So I was like, so everything was in my head. I was actually being the senior I was hired to do. So that was cool. And ever since I keep looking for a job. Like, what I want is to join a team in a wellness and fitness and health industry. And I'm still looking for that. Obviously, like, job market right now is a little bit crazy. I am in a few processes. They have been long, but I keep searching. You know, I don't settle until I have this offer. But I am like, I cannot stand out and wait. So I reach out to you and to Avocademy. And something I'm very passionate about is also sharing the knowledge. I always knew when I was in foundations, like, hey, someday I want to be a mentor. So I reached out, and actually they had like openings for mentors. So I became a mentor. And I am also, I am working with an agency with I am a contractor in a per client basis. So I am working on different cool projects right now. I cannot stand still. Like, it's in my nature to be doing something. So that, and I am starting a personal project as well. I'm fortunate enough, and my wife, she's a project manager, but a developer as well. So we're developing a cute, silly tool to run our house. So budget and grocery shopping. So that's also like a fun project that we're working on. I just really, really love what I do. So yeah, for me, it would be crazy to think, yeah, I'm going to do something else in the meantime. And I already know that it's UX. So I've been fortunate enough, and my past experience, like for the past, I don't know how many months, I think 3 months now, I've been doing UX, which is exactly what I love. So it's in a different form, not exactly what I had in mind initially, but I'm still doing it. And I feel incredibly fulfilled, like, because I'm doing what I love.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I know it's super unfortunate, the tech layoffs and kind of how the entire tech industry has been affected these last couple months. But I'm really glad your team reached out to you and kind of gave you that reassurance that it wasn't you. I think, when people are part of a layoff, they think like, I did something wrong, like I could have done something better. And it's almost always never your fault, right? Like the company planning, budgeting, and things like that. So it's really nice that they reached out and you're not kind of like holding that with you, because there's probably nothing you could have done differently to avoid that situation at that company. But I'm so glad to hear you're doing well, that you have that contract work. I'm really glad you've joined our team. I remember when you reached out, I was like, yes, we would definitely want you on our mentor staff. But that's awesome. Is there anything else you want to share with us before I ask you one last closing question?
No, I think that's it. I think for the people who are starting, like they are fresh out of foundations or CJ, like something that's been happening since I lost like this first job, that the Avocademy community has surrounded me with such love and support. And by the community, I don't mean like just the staff, but other fellow students or past students. Like, it's been amazing. And I've had the opportunity to do the same thing with other people. For example, in CJ, I made a lot of friends. So they've reached out to me we've exchanged it like, hey, look, this is my portfolio presentation, because I have like a slide presentation for when I'm in my interviews. So we're like comparing notes. And one of the things that they have always told me is like, during my interview, sometimes I don't know how to present my work. And something that I think is very important for those who are just starting to search for their job and who are in this quest of being hired, when presenting the portfolio, understand why you use the tools you used and explain that, more than saying, yeah, well, I did competitive analysis. Why? And how this informed your next decisions and even other decisions. So that is really important, that you understand, why are you using these tools? Why do you do research? Why do you do a usability script? Like, why? So understand why are you doing, don't just do, but put a little bit of thought into this process, because that's going to give you an advantage. Like, that's going to prove that you understand your craft. So that's something that I would add.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think that's a great piece of feedback for folks that are currently, you know, in their job search, part of the programs. We're always trying to get you all to think about not only what you did or how you did it, which are really easy, right? Like, you know what you did, you know how you did it because you did it, but like the why is hard. And I think there's a moment once it like you've done it enough times that you're like, okay, I get it. This informs this, therefore, and I needed this outcome. So that's why I did this. And then I did that type of, you know, path. But it does come with time, and it is a little bit harder to understand and to get people to kind of see that. So that's an amazing piece of advice. Thank you for sharing that. So let's close out with one final question. So for those listening that are not part of Foundations or Career Jumpstart and are thinking about, should I do this? Should I not do this? Right? Like, they know that it's probably for them. They're a little creative, they're a little logical, and they're like, I've found this UX thing. What is one piece of advice that you would give them, or that maybe you would have given yourself back then?
Yeah, so for example, if you are a designer and like me, you are a Virgo, this is it. This is where you want to be, because it's the perfect marriage between data and design. So go for it. This is exactly it. But I think overall, it goes with this life situation. Like, see what, like, read your life. What is life trying to tell you, right? But most importantly, like, I love the Foundations because it was like really immersive into the UX field. So go through it and you will know if this is for you or not. Like, if you're doing it for the money, yeah, well, you will, yeah, it's gonna be good. But in 5 years, you're gonna be changing careers again. So basically, like, my advice would be like, feel it, like, go with your instincts. Like, I'm reflecting, and I think intuition, it's a very important skill that people don't think it's really important, or people won't ask you about the skill in your interviews. But intuition is everything. Like, you feel it in your gut that this is for you. My God, go for it. And make your mind, and just know that this is not going to be like easy breezy. You have to put a lot of effort. But if you put your effort into something, you can accomplish anything you want, because it's not rocket science. You're doing every step so you will get a result, right?
Yeah.
So just feel it. If this is for you, really decide and go for it. And I know that timelines are not exactly as fast as we would all want, but be persistent. Like, practice makes perfect, and this applies to everything. If you're just coming from a completely different field like psychology, even some people are like, I don't know, they are teachers and they're transitioning to UX, and you have no idea about design. Practice, like, observe other designs and understand like how they make things. Like, is it a round corner? How much distance between objects? And observe and practice. If you're doing interviews, practice. It takes a time to like get in the flow of selling yourself. So it may take longer, but just put on the work and keep doing it. And there's nothing wrong with you. Like, I've been getting rejections like pouring rain in my inbox, but that's okay. That's not personal. So that is, oh, sorry about that.
No, you're
And
good.
that is, and like, don't make it personal, but that's something that you will use as a UX designer. Because in UX, you will never have a final sticker and you did great, and now you go
Yeah.
to the next level. It is like, okay, you did great. Now let's see how can we improve this more. So
Yeah.
you will never get like that. Yeah, I made it and it's done. Sorry, we can re-record that if you want to.
No, you're good. You're good.
So
That's
you
great.
will never get like that sense of completion of, yeah, I ended this, I made it. So this is the UX life. You will get rejected. Your manager is going to tell you, no, do that design again. And it is not personal. It's not that you're not putting good design work. It's that have to iterate and reiterate over and over.
Yeah. No, I think that's the great piece of advice. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
Of course, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.